Welcome to this super windy mountaintop airport over here. Today, I wanted to go on a little cruise to remind myself of some of the things that I've been feeling, because today we're going to be working on my daily driver. That's right, some of you probably recognize this car. It appeared super early in this channel's life because I did a timing belt on it, and frankly it doesn't get a whole lot of love because it doesn't get a whole lot of miles because I haven't been driving it around a whole lot recently, but it deserves some attention because she is a little bit hurt. Now, this is a 95 Acura Integra GSR. The GSR is the kind of middle version between the LS, the base model, and the Type R, which is the super hype. They call it the Hype R because it is crazy expensive now. But it's a great car, it makes great power, but like I said, there's some problems. It has not been handling its best recently, which is really sad because this car has a couple of different championships to its name, both in the autocross arena. There's some time trials type things that it's got some titles to it, and it deserves to handle like it used to. Now, one of the issues that I have is the car sits way too low. It looks awesome. I mean, it looks fantastic, but it sits way too low. This nose drags on literally everything. See, there's just not a lot of ground clearance here. It looks fantastic at this ride height, if not a little bit dirty, but the nose drags on everything. I can't go anywhere without the nose dragging on stuff, and it's really, really irritating, and it's just not healthy for the car to be this low. So, what I need to do, part of what I need to do is get some new shocks for it for some reasons that I'll show you a little bit later on. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to fix the ride height. Now, I think that we can, ooh, this is not a good angle. Now, I think that we can keep this low life look, but give it just enough ground clearance to be reasonable to drive around on a city street and stuff, just by adding maybe an inch to both front and rear. You just notice that the front looks a little bit lower than the rear. We call that rake, and rake both adds to handling and, for me, the way a car looks. So with that, let's get back to the shop. Let's get this car up in the air and pull the suspension off, and I will talk to you a little bit more about the problems when we get there. Okay guys, here's the deal. I already have the car in the shop and the back end is taken apart. I'm sorry I did not show you that, but it's not terribly exciting. But I wanted to skip straight through to this right here. Here's the deal. Here's why I can't get proper ground clearance out of this thing. Right here is where the rear shocks mount to the control arm, okay? And this surface right here is where the top hat mounts to the body, okay? You got that? These are what I just pulled off the car. This is what I'm putting on the car. Here's the deal. You notice how these flanges are lined up? And look at the top of the shock body. Look at how much more travel there is, or how much more shock body there is from there to there. See that? It's a huge difference, and that is why I cannot get proper ride height out of this thing. The deal is, obviously, this tube moves up and down inside the body here, right? It can only move so far, which means I can only lift the car up so much. These are going to let me lift up way more, and they're going to be much better. They're going to be much better. I don't know the history of these. I bought these used. Don't know when the last time they were rebuilt. These were rebuilt not recently, but more recently, and these were actually on the car when it went and won some titles and some autocross trophies and all sorts of stuff. So I know that these are going to work well, at least better than these, and I can get proper ground clearance out of them. It's going to be much, much better. I'm going to get to work swapping all this stuff over. I think I'm going to use these same springs and these same top hats. These top hats are kind of fancy. These top hats are kind of fancy. They're a little bit trick in the way that way up in there is where the shock stops moving, and so this gives you about 2 inches more shock travel than a stock style top hat, which is quite nice. And I say more shock travel, it's not letting the shock move more, but it's letting the shock be right where it wants to be as far as travel. Alrighty, we're at the front of the car now, which is really where the biggest issue was the rear was fine-ish, I suppose, but the front was way too low. Like I said, the nose dragged on everything everywhere, and so let's get this front end apart. Okay, alrighty. Now we gotta move top side. You know, it's really quite funny, I think. I want to remind everyone that this is my daily driver. As you're looking at the adjustable spring perches, the Coney yellows, the steel braided brake lines, the aftermarket strut bar, the cold air intake, the big fat exhaust, the headers, as you're looking at all of these things, this is my daily driver. And it has in the past, obviously, autocross. It's won some championships here and there. But these days, she's a daily driver. And really, if that isn't a good metaphor for this channel, I don't really know what is. I guess not metaphor, but this channel is quickly becoming less about racing specifically and more about a racer's life where we really just cannot leave well enough alone. Got to mess with it. Got to modify it, got to make it sound good, got to make it handle better. Doesn't really matter what it is. Now this part is always a little bit of a struggle. I have done this so many times on this car, it's ridiculous. I've also done it a lot in general because so many Hondas are very similar, if not identical, in this area. So I've done this operation a lot. But you know something? It's basically never not a struggle. There we go. That will be what we need. This is the main portion of the strut. Now let's go over to the workbench and talk about why it's not going to be just that simple. Here's a great side-by-side comparison. You can really see the length I'm talking about. The bottom edges are lined up. The top edges are not at all lined up. This is what I just pulled off the car. This is what I'm getting ready to put on the car. Now, it's not a huge difference. It's not a big difference at all. This is one that I already have done one side, but this is not a big difference, but it's all the difference that I really need. I'm not trying to jack this car way up in the air. I just need just like an inch maybe, and I might even not do quite an inch because the way the nose just drags on everything all the time, I can't stand it. But I don't need that much more ride height, and that will give me the distance. Not only will it give me the distance just out of the box, but I will also have more room to grow. I'll have more room to lift this thing up because these shocks are also shortened. So for one, I said that all this stuff swaps back and forth between different Hondas really easily. Well, these are Civic shocks, which are shorter to begin with because it's a smaller car, but these have been also shortened in an aftermarket capacity. They've been literally made smaller because the Civic, well, the lower you can get it, the better it's going to handle. And it's a common modification is to shorten the shocks to get it even lower. I don't want that. I want it higher. So I'm going to finish assembling these, and I'm going to stick them on the car. I'll see you in a second.
My plate and my own things from the and these was ridiculous.
So what network is on? How do we find? Do you have a love interest?
Actually, I have a few. Like one day where I looked on the call sheet, not one call sheet that I made it with.
We're doing it.
Further than mine, those types of scenes, I do have to do like kind of.
Extra watch. I'm gonna sit closer to the TV now.
You guys are gonna relate to. You guys
I haven't seen you in a long time.
I go into Zoom and like, there's a button to like touch up your appearance. So it's like
you don't need that.
you guys are gonna be able to understand.
Okay.
Why
that's
this
much
was,
too
like,
low.
Scarier.
Okay, So the car is on the ground, and the front end is considerably lower than it was. Obviously, I got my measurements very wrong, but here's the wonderful news. The wonderful news is I have plenty of room to go up still. So I can lift this up by quite a bit. I'm definitely going to go up an inch. I'm tucking tire there. That's not good. So, I mean, that's probably a look, right? That's probably a look for some people. Yeah. That is not a look for me, though. That is definitely not a look for me. This is not what I was looking for. It is getting dark. I am very tired. So I'm going to come back tomorrow and raise this nose up a bit, which is a long, arduous process that, if you know, you know. I'm gonna leave all this the way it is. I'm gonna be back here tomorrow morning to raise this car up a bit more and do it the way, we'll just do it properly, make it all work. I'll be back. So we are back at that same airport in a slightly different place. I decided you guys did not want to see simple suspension adjustments. It's very annoying. I have to lift the car up, take the wheel off, make some adjustments, put the car back down on its wheels, do some measuring over and over and over again, and it's just not that much fun to look at. I have test driven it already. We are sitting a little bit higher up now. Here's the bad news. I have good news and I have some bad news. The good news is I was able to lift the car a little bit, and I have about a 1/4 inch of more ride height into it, which is way better than it was. The bad news is that's all I can do with the parts that I have right now. I say that, but that's not completely true. Let me pop the hood and explain a little bit better about what I'm talking about. So here's what we're talking about. I showed you earlier on these trick aluminum top hats. These are ground control top hats, and they are extended a bit to give you more room for the shock to move around in, which means you can put the shock in its prime working range. Now, the problem that I have now is I love those parts. I think they're super cool. But the issue is I cannot lift the car anymore because those top hats are taking up about an inch, maybe an inch and a half of shock travel that I can't use to give the car more ride height. Now I can swap those out for stock top hats that would take up much less room. For the rears, I could move that little clip on the shock body up one and get a little more ride height out of that one as well and lift the car more. But if I'm honest, I like these ground control top hats. I think they look awesome, and I like having that little bit of bling under the hood. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be with the car, I'm going to experience it and drive it like it is for a little while and see if I can deal with it, see if it scrapes on things less, and see if the car works any better. Now, the final thing I'm going to leave you with is this taught me a couple of things. For one, there has been a squeaking out of the nose that I thought might have been top hats. Not the case. These are new top hats. The squeak is still here. The other thing is the funny steering, the dynamic, what I call a dynamic steering input, is also still there, which I thought might have been tied to ride height, possibly the way I put together the shocks the first time. That's also still there. So there are still some problems with this car, but it is perfectly drivable the way it is. And frankly, I think it looks awesome still. So aside from being super dirty because my driveway is a disaster, I think it still looks awesome. It sits a little bit higher, it's still raked forward a little bit, but I think the ride height still matches the wheel diameter quite well, and I think it looks great. So I'm going to end it there. This is going to be a real quick video, really short because it was a very quick project, something that I had to get done really quickly because I got a new job. This whole YouTube project has been kind of a COVID project for me, but I have a full-time job. Again, I will be getting back to that. I will still be pumping out content because I'm having a bunch of fun with it, but the next thing that we get to do now is get back on the race car. That's right, we are going back racing. It is time to get the car ready to go after its latest impact and get back to the racing content, which is what this channel is supposed to be all about. So with that, I'm going to end it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Find me on Instagram at The.Daily.Racer. I am constantly posting between videos there, so you can get an idea of what goes on the day-to-day there. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. We're getting back on the race car, and I'm super pumped for that. I cannot wait to start working on that thing again. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.